Sup guys, it's Alex here, and today we will be simulating the entire 2020 NCAA Tournament. Yesterday it was announced that the tournament did get canceled, so no actual games are going to be happening. But, I mean, it's March Madness for a reason. People are still in the college basketball mood, and I thought, why not just go ahead and simulate the entire 2020 NCAA Tournament. The NCAA is probably not going to announce the actual national champion this year, but we will go through here and we will crown our own national champion. We will be using a site called NCAA Game Sims that simulates every single college basketball game 10,000 times, kind of like the FPI thing for the NFL. But I will be going through, and this is Joe Lenardi's most recent bracketology and the final bracketology of 2020. It's as of March 12th, and I will be using this as my bracket, and I may be doing my own bracketology or stuff. I'm still going to be producing a few March Madness and NCAA tournament content videos, but the actual tournament's not going to be happening, so it's just kind of wishful thinking at this point, but it's fun to kind of see what would happen. It's fun to kind of go through our own tournament video. I did this yesterday in my bracketology update, but I think it's really fun to do. We had 2C Kentucky get upset in yesterday's bracketology thing, but this is the actual simulation of the 2020 NCAA tournament. And without any further ado, my bracket thing is going to be via Excel right here, and it's going to be following it along since the ESPN Tournament Challenge obviously isn't going to be working. But I will be able to, so I'll be putting the winners in here so you guys will be able to follow along if you are new to the channel and haven't been watching my recent videos, to where I have been using this Excel document as the bracket. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into these simulations. This is probably going to be like a 20-minute video just because it takes a little bit of time to set this up with the home team and away team, but we will go ahead and simulate it. We will not have home court advantage on, with the regional sites and stuff, with the Midwest, obviously some teams are going to be, and the bigger teams are going to have more fans there and give them more of an edge, but they are all on neutral sites, so I will not be including home court advantage to give kind of an unfair advantage to a lower seeded teams. The higher seeded team will always be in as the home, and the lower seed would be away. It's just an easy way to sort it. But up first, we have Kansas versus Siena. Obviously, Kansas should win this one. Yeah, 71-48. Kansas won't struggle too much there. But up next, we have Houston and Marquette. We'll go ahead and put Houston here, and I'll probably give my own predictions throughout the course of this video as I'm making it. I think that Marquette would probably end up winning this game with Marcus Howard. I don't think they'd struggle too much there. Houston probably would end up winning the American Conference, but we have Houston winning by 1 point here, 73-72. Houston moving on as the 8th seed. Auburn versus Liberty is up next. Liberty had pulled off the, 12-5 upset in this exact same spot last year. May have been the 6-11 over Mississippi State, but Liberty did win the ASUN this year, and I think that they could upset Auburn. Auburn was kind of struggling down the stretch a little bit, but in the simulation, Auburn does win 79-65, so we won't even have to ask that question. Wisconsin and North Texas. Wisconsin had one of the hottest finishes out of any out of any Power 5 team in the nation. They finished on a 12-game winning streak. If I can find North Texas here. North Texas is the representative out of the, Conference USA. I think Western Kentucky probably would have won that conference, but we'll never know what happens. But in this simulation, we have Wisconsin winning 63-43, and yesterday Wisconsin actually won the actual national championship in my simulation of the bracketology, which was pretty cool to see. Up next, we have Iowa versus East Tennessee State. East Tennessee State was one of my best sleeper picks for this tournament. I was super excited to see what they could do in the tournament. I think they could have even been a 10 seed and potentially go on to win some games. And Iowa has Luka Garza, who is a Player of the Year contender. But that won't matter because they come to an end right here. We have East Tennessee State winning 87-81. We have our first upset of the 2020 NCAA tournament. East Tennessee State wins 87-81 to pull off the 11-over-6 upset. Duke and Belmont are up next. Will we see a 14 seed upset a 3 seed right here? That would be fantastic. I don't think Duke is a Final Four team as of this year. I think it's just kind of been interesting. They've been falling off the map a little bit over the course of the season, especially with a 3 out of 4 game losing streak at one point. But they don't struggle too much here with Belmont. They win by almost 40 according to the simulation. Up next, we have Providence versus Arizona State. Providence is one of those teams that was absolutely on fire at the end of the season, looking great heading into the actual NCAA tournament itself, but we won't get to see what happens with that. Ed Cooley did do a good job with his team. They are facing Arizona State right here, and they do beat Arizona State 67-50, so it's basically chalk in this bracket, but we do have that upset with East Tennessee State. Up next, we have Kentucky and South Dakota State. Kentucky got upset by UC Irvine in yesterday's bracketology, so I really hope that they move on here. I'm a Kentucky fan, if you haven't been following along with my channel, and they get upset right here. No! Kentucky loses as the 2 seed to a 15 seed North Dakota State. What does NCAA Game Sims think about Kentucky? If yesterday they lost to the 15 seed UC Irvine, and now they lose to the 15 seed North Dakota State by 4. This is absolute pandemonium right here. 15-2, Kentucky, the blue blood, losing. Man, I'm a little bit upset kind of watching that. But we will go with Providence here as a higher seed, as they are. The 7 seed, and North Dakota State is the 15. Will we see a 15 in the Sweet 16? We will not. We have Providence moving on as the 7 seed to the Sweet 16 over North Dakota State. Up next, we have Duke and East Tennessee State. If these two teams had ended up matching up in the NCAA Tournament, I probably would have picked East Tennessee State to pull off the upset here. I really like them this season. Will they pull off the 11-3? They lose by 2. Man, Duke ends up moving on to the Sweet 16 by the slimmest of margins with 2 points here over East Tennessee State. Up next, we have Wisconsin versus Auburn. This is a 4 versus 5 matchup here. As I mentioned yesterday, Wisconsin did end up winning the national championship, and obviously they came out of this region. Actually, we're not picking Ave Marie or whatever that is. We are going to see that Wisconsin gets the victory here, 82-59 by I think 23 points here over Auburn. They don't struggle too much. They are into the Sweet 16 pretty handily right there. But up next, we have Kansas versus Houston. Obviously, I think Kansas would win this one in real life, but we don't know what's going to happen here with the NCAA Sim. I mean, freaking North Dakota State beat Kentucky. Let's see, for a spot in the Sweet 16, Houston wins by almost 30, a 27-point margin, 86-59. We will not have our number 1 overall seed in the Final Four or to be the national champion either. Houston versus Wisconsin is up next. We got to switch the teams here. We have Wisconsin as the 4 seed and then Houston as the 8 seed. For a spot in the Elite 8, we have Wisconsin winning here, 82-61. This is absolute pandemonium. Will Wisconsin end up winning again? Does NCAA Game Sim, is that run by a Wisconsin fan or something like that? We will end up seeing. But up next, we have Duke as the 3 seed versus the 7-seeded Providence Friars here for a spot in the, where is Providence? Providence, where are you? There we go. 3 versus 7 here for a spot in the Elite 8 to face Wisconsin. We have Providence moving on here, 68-62 to the Elite 8. I really want to see Providence here moving on to the Final Four. We will go ahead and see who ends up moving on to the Final Four here. Wisconsin as the 4, Providence as the 7 for a spot from the Midwest Regional. In the Final Four, we have Providence, 82-72. Oh, in this simulation, Providence is the Final Four representative out of here. I would love to see that if that did end up happening in real life. But now we will move to the East Regional. Up first, we have Dayton versus the winner of Robert Morris and what is that? Boston University. I'm not going to go with Boston University here just because I don't feel like simulating the rest of these like 16 seeds. I'll probably simulate the play-in games, but for like the 11 and 12 seeds. But I mean, the 16 seeds, it doesn't. Oh my gosh! We have a 16 seed beating a number 1 seed. Boston University winning 70-67 over Dayton in this simulation. I mean, this is not the coin flip bracket, I promise. We have Boston University pulling off the 16-1 upset. I thought the Kentucky game would have been absolutely crazy, but we have freaking Boston University upsetting the National Player of the Year and Obi Toppin. This is absolute insanity at this point. No way that actually happens in the actual NCAA tournament itself, but it's really fun to see. And Colorado gets the 1-point victory here over Florida, 57-56. I am in absolute shock right now. We'll go ahead and do this playing game right here. We have Texas and Richmond just for the right to play. I think that was Butler as the 12 seed. We'll go ahead and see who ends up winning this one. We have Richmond moving on as the 91-74. So Richmond wins that playing game for the right to face Butler here. And for a spot in the next round, we have Richmond pulling off the upset. 84-76. We have another upset here. This may be the upset region. Up next is Maryland and Akron. Man, I am in disbelief right now. Hopefully you guys are having fun watching this. Kentucky and Dayton going out in the first round. Will Maryland do the same? Will we see a 13-4 upset here? We will. Akron winning by 15. I mean, that one wasn't even close. We have a 12 seed, a 13 seed, and a 16 seed, and we're only done with half of the region so far. Up next, we have Penn State versus the winner of NC State and UCLA. I'll go ahead and simulate that one right here. I think in real life, UCLA would probably end up winning, but we will do our due diligence and go ahead and do the simulation. We have NC State winning this one 57-50, so we will move NC State down here as the lower seeded representative. They will be facing Penn State, who is the 6th seed and just recently lost to Northwestern. I wonder if that's going to be factored in here. And we have Penn State winning by 2. We are going with the chalk in that 6 versus 11 matchup. Up next, we have Villanova and Hofstra. Hofstra did pull, or I think Boston University was in the spot yesterday, and they were able to pull off the upset over Villanova. But I wonder what's going to happen here. We will have Villanova versus Hofstra, and we have Villanova winning by 13 to move on. Up next, we have West Virginia and Utah State. I think that Utah State would probably end up winning that one in real life, but we will see who ends up winning this one in the simulation, because, I mean, this simulation has been so much fun to do. I don't know why I didn't go right here. All right, what is going on? Utah State. All right, there's Utah. Utah State. We will see who moves on here. 7 versus 10 matchup to the next round. We have Utah State, winning by 19, just as I anticipated. But will we see an upset here? Florida State versus Kentucky. I mean, anything's off the table at this point. Freaking number 1, Dayton losing. All right, we'll go ahead and pick Northern Kentucky here. And then number 2, Kentucky losing, and then Maryland losing. Florida State holds off the upset bid by Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky does give them a game, but they will not be moving on. But for a spot in the Sweet 16, we'll go ahead and do Florida State versus Utah State, the 10 seed. Will we see a double-digit seed in the Sweet 16? We will not. Florida State ekes out another close win. They may be the cardiac team. I don't know why I said cardiac. They are now in the Sweet 16. Up next is Villanova versus, I don't know why I picked the year right there. We have Villanova versus Penn State. Villanova is a higher seed, so they will be up here. And then we have Penn State as the 6th seed. They are down here as the away team. Then for the spot in the Sweet 16, we have Penn State pulling off the 85-82 victory here, upset 6-3. They are now in the Sweet 16. Then we have Akron versus Richmond. Richmond is the higher seed, surprisingly, as the 12 seed. And then we have Akron here as the 13, so we are guaranteed to have a double-digit seed right here in the Sweet 16. And we have Richmond pulling off the 1-point victory, 79-78 into the Sweet 16. Up next, Colorado and Boston. You all know at this point I really want to see I want to see Boston University make a run right here. I'd really want to see them win, or at least make the Sweet 16. Will we see them in the Sweet 16? We will! A 16 seed in the Sweet 16. I'm loving this so far. 63-58, Boston University. Moving on to the Sweet 16. And for a spot in the Elite 8, we're going to keep it going. We're guaranteed to have a double-digit seed in the Elite 8 out of this region. The two number 1 seeds already falling down. Will we have a 12 seed or a 16 seed in the Elite 8? Boston University's run comes to an end, but man, that would have been crazy to see if that happened in real life. We will have Richmond in the Elite 8, then Penn State and Florida State for a spot in the Elite 8 to face Richmond. We have Florida State as the top seed team here. Then we have Penn State down here at the bottom for a spot in the Elite 8. We have Penn State moving on as a 65-57. So we will either have a 6 seed or a 12 seed to match the 7 seed already in the Final Four. So we will go ahead and check it right here. We have Penn State as the higher seed. Then we have Richmond as the lower seed. Will we see a 6 or a 12? In the Final Four, we will have, by 2 points, we have Penn State, the 6th seed, moving on to the Final Four. This has been absolutely crazy so far. We have gone through half of the bracket. Penn State as the 6th seed, Providence as the freaking 7th seed. I couldn't remember what. I couldn't figure it out right there. But we are now moving over here to the West Regional right here. Gonzaga moving up first, facing the winner of Prairie View, A&M, and NC Central. I'm just going to go with NC Central right here because it's probably easier to find. If we type in North Carolina Central, it may be able to pop up. All right, North Alabama, North Carolina Central. There we go, NC Central. Will we see another 16-1 upset? We will not. Gonzaga handles NC Central right here without any issues. LSU and Oklahoma up next for a spot in the second round. I think that LSU would probably end up winning this game in real life. That would be a pretty high-scoring game because both teams kind of had horrible defenses throughout the course of the season. Oklahoma wins 70-68 in the simulation to move on with a slight 9-8 upset. Michigan and Yale are up next. I mean, at this point, like every single conference canceled their tournament, so I can't really say anything about the Ivy League just automatically giving the bid to Yale. I think the regular season champions in all the major conferences ended up winning their national championship or their conference championships. But we have an upset here, 71-68. We have 12 seed Yale moving on to the next round. Oregon and New Mexico State. This is one of my upset picks right here. I would have had New Mexico State pulling off the victory here over Oregon. Will we see Peyton Pritchard and Oregon move on, or the really hot team who hasn't lost since like December 15th in New Mexico State? This one wasn't even close. 94-63, a 31-point margin with Oregon getting the victory here over New Mexico State. Then up next we have Byu and Indiana. Byu is one of the hottest offensive teams over the course of the season. I think they were like the top shooting three-point team in the nation, but their metrics in the offensive end were definitely really good. But they are losing here. Another upset, 11-6. We have Indiana moving on past Byu. Up next, we have Miles Powell and Seton Hall versus Eastern Washington. If they lose here to Eastern Washington, I just don't even know at this point. But NCAA Game Sim.com thinks that Seton Hall will move on here 79-66 over Eastern Washington. Arizona and Texas Tech, these two teams I think are pretty even. Honestly, don't know who I would pick in the actual bracket itself. Maybe Texas Tech with Chris Beard just because they made it to the national championship last year and Chris Beard has that championship experience. And now they have Texas Tech moving on here 65-59. I would have gotten that one right, but this has just been absolutely crazy to see. Up next, we have San Diego State versus UC Irvine. This one really hurts for all the San Diego State fans out there. And I mean like the Dayton fans and Florida State fans having to have their season come to an end so early. I feel really bad for those fans after having the best season in team history. But we will have another 2-seed lose in the first round. San Diego State loses to UC Irvine here. UC Irvine pulling off the 15-2 upset. And we will keep it rolling right here. Texas Tech versus UC Irvine for a spot in the Sweet 16. I mean, this has just been absolutely crazy. This simulation has been going great. Texas Tech moves on here as the 10 seed over 15 seed, 68-60. Up next, we have Seton Hall versus Indiana as the 3 versus 11. I think that Seton Hall would obviously probably end up winning that game in real life, but you never know with this simulation. We will have Seton Hall move on 79-65 here over Indiana. They didn't struggle too much in that one. Up next is the 4 seed Oregon Ducks versus the 12 seed Yale Bulldogs. I think that Oregon with Peyton Pritchard would probably end up winning that one in real life, but at this point you just don't even know. NCAA Game Sim thinks that Oregon scores 100 points and wins. That's the highest scoring game so far of the tournament, 194. Up next, we have Gonzaga versus Oklahoma for the right to make the Sweet 16. Will we still have a number 1 seed alive in the Sweet 16? We are about to find that out. Both of the number 1, actually no, I think that, I don't remember when Kansas ended up losing to Houston. It may have been this, I think they ended up losing to Houston, to move on to the Sweet 16. But we will have Gonzaga moving on here 82-70 to the Sweet 16. And they will face Oregon. This one will be a great game to see in real life. And this would have been an actual matchup with my Bracketology predictions. 1 seed Gonzaga versus the 4 seed Oregon Ducks. We have Oregon pulling off the 93-90 upset. They are now moving on to the Elite Eight, and they will face the winner of Seton Hall and Texas Tech. I think this would be great if we ended up seeing Seton Hall versus Oregon for the right to move on to the Final Four. But we have to get to that point first. Will we see Texas Tech pull off the 10-3 upset? We will, 85-70. Texas Tech is continuing their Cinderella run to the Elite Eight. We have 4 seed Oregon versus 10 seed Texas Tech in the Elite Eight for the right to move on to the Final Four. And out of this region, we will have Oregon moving on 78-57, as you can see right there. So we now have a 4 seed in the Final Four. I probably would have honestly picked Oregon. Actually, no, I probably would have picked New Mexico State to upset Oregon in the first round. What am I saying? But we have Oregon moving on there. They're probably my second favorite team in that region behind Gonzaga to move on to the Final Four if it was to happen in real life. But up next, we have Baylor versus Winthrop for a right to move on to the second round. Will we see another 16-1 upset? I do not think so, because I think Baylor would easily win that one in real life. But you never know with this freaking simulation that's been going on. Baylor versus Winthrop for the right to move on to the second round. We have Baylor moving on 83-69. Up next, we have St. Mary's and Rutgers is another one of those teams that you got to feel really bad for with the way that this tournament has ended. They were having one of the best seasons, if not the best season in team history, but they will not get a chance to see what would have happened in the NCAA tournament. And the simulation thinks that they actually would have won a game in the NCAA tournament, getting off, having that 9-8 upset. Up next is Ohio State versus Stephen F. Austin. We will have Ohio State here as the number 1, or as the higher seed. and Stephen F. Austin, who I think could pull off the upset here. This one was a 50-50 matchup for me. Ohio State wins this one pretty handily, 82-66. And in yesterday's bracketology, Ohio State did make it out of this region as the winner and into the Final Four. But will we see that happen again in this in the simulation? I don't know at this point. It could go either way. Louisville and Vermont, I think this would have been the first game that tipped off according to Joe Lunardi's schedule. But Louisville wins 89-50. That one wasn't even close, almost a 40-point margin. Up next, we have Virginia versus Cincinnati for the right to move on. I think that Virginia probably would have ended up winning this game. I don't think it would have been too close. Cincinnati was just way too inconsistent over the course of the season. We have Virginia moving on here, 58-51 over Cincinnati. Up next, we have Michigan State versus Bradley. I do think that Michigan State would probably end up winning this game in real life pretty handily, though Bradley is a team you needed to watch out for. They could have surprised some people, I believe. But we will have Bradley, if I can type it in right here. Yeah, Bradley moving on to face Michigan State for the right to move on. And Bradley almost pulled off the upset here. Michigan State wins by 1 point, 69-68 to move on to the next round. It doesn't really bode well for the future of them in the course of this simulation. Up next, we have Illinois versus USC. If I can find USC, there we go. For the right to move on to the next round, we have Illinois easily winning that game with Iota Sumu, 89-64. Up next, we have Creighton versus Little Rock. If Creighton's another one of those teams similar to like San Diego State and Dayton and Rutgers, they were having the season of a lifetime, but it won't even matter. I mean, I just feel really bad for them. They were one of the best offensive teams. I definitely think they could have made a run, but they will win 82-57 here over Little Rock. Then we have Creighton versus Illinois for a spot in the Sweet 16. I'd probably pick Creighton to win that one in real life, and they will end up winning right here by 21 points, 73-52, and move on to the Sweet 16. Up next, we have Michigan State and Virginia. These two teams always seem to end up playing each other in the NCAA tournament for some reason. If I can find Michigan State, there we go. Michigan State versus Virginia, the 3 versus 6 matchup here versus the defending national champions. Will they be able to keep continuing to defend their championship? They will. 66-51 here, defeating Michigan State. Michigan State did not look too good there against Bradley, and that's another reason why they probably ended up losing this simulation. So we will have Louisville versus Ohio State up next. Louisville was the number 1 team at one point during the course of the season. Ohio State was almost right there. But NCAA Game Sim thinks that Louisville will be moving on here, 68-47. Ohio State will not be making the Final Four like they did in yesterday's simulation. Up next, we have Baylor versus Rutgers. Yesterday, they had Rutgers pulling off the upset. Will we see it again? Will Rutgers' Cinderella season continue? They will not. Baylor gets the victory here, 79-52. But then we have Baylor versus Louisville for a right to move on to the Elite Eight. Baylor versus Louisville, NCAA Sim thinks that Baylor moves on here, 85-72. Baylor moving on. They are the farthest moving number 1 seed. Will we see the number 1 seed in the Elite Eight? That is yet to be determined, because up next we have Creighton as the 2 seed versus the 6 seed Virginia Cavaliers for the right to move on to the Elite Eight. We have Creighton moving on 66-56 by 10, which sets up Baylor versus Creighton in the Elite Eight for the right to move on to the Final Four. Will we see our first number 1 seed and the only number 1 seed in the Final Four? It'd be pretty crazy if none of the Final Four seeds none of the number 1 seeds end up making the Final Four. But we will see right here in the simulation, no number 1 seeds are making the Final Four. We have Creighton moving on here, 83-78. So now in the Final Four, we have a number 2 seed in Creighton, a number 4 seed in Oregon, a number 6 seed in Penn State, a number 7 seed in Providence. This has been absolutely crazy to see happen, and I'm really excited to see what happens here. But we will do that left side first. Penn State as the 6th seed. They are the highest seed, which is pretty weird to say, in the Final Four. They will be facing Providence, who is the 7th seed. For the right to move on to the national championship game, we have, if it will scroll down, oh no. So I had to end up switching here, Providence and Penn State. With the home and away team, I mean, it's not going to affect anything. For some reason, it wasn't running with Providence as the away team. But if we scroll down here, we have Penn State winning 66-57 to move on to the national championship game. That was just kind of a weird situation. It wasn't working with Providence as the away team. But we have Penn State as the supposedly away team moving on to the national championship game here. As the 6th seed, they will face the winner of Oregon and Creighton. Creighton as the 2 seed will be the higher seed over the 4-seeded Oregon Ducks. For a spot in the national championship game to face Penn State, we have Oregon moving on here, 75-67. Penn State versus Oregon. This would have been about a crazy battle if this was like the college football national championship game. But we have Penn State versus Oregon for the national championship. Oregon, as the 4 seed, will be the higher seed in the simulation right here. Penn State will be the lower seed right here as the 6th seed. And man, I'm so ready to click this button right here. This has been a crazy NCAA tournament simulation. Oregon as the 4 seed, Penn State as the 6 seed. We have Penn State winning the national championship game here, 75-66. Penn State as the 6 seed after losing to Northwestern in their most recent game. NCAA Game Sims simulation predicts them to win the national championship, which this is just absolutely crazy. This has been so much fun to make. I hope you guys had a ton of fun watching this. I'll be doing a couple other NCAA tournament videos, and I know this video ended up probably being like 25, 26 minutes, something like that. Thank you guys for sticking around, or if you ended up just simulating to the end to see who win the national championship. I hope you're surprised, and I hope you go back and look at the different upsets and stuff. I'll go ahead and spoil a little bit. We had a number 1 seed lose to a 16 seed with Dayton losing to Boston University. We had 2 number 2 seeds losing in Kentucky to North Dakota State, and then San Diego State to UC Irvine, and just a ton of other stuff that was crazy. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm really upset that the NCAA tournament's not happening, but we have the simulation to go ahead and predict, and Penn State wins the 2020 national championship. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all later.